They had us surrounded, 12 ships hanging like steel vultures over Earth's stratosphere. Smooth, black hulls, no visible engines, just silent watchers blotting out the stars. Every warning system on Earth had gone off at once. The panic wasn't broadcasted. People didn't even know yet. But we did. The men in this bunker, buried 70 feet below Colorado soil, we knew. I'd been awake for 3 days straight when they finally sent one of them down. They didn't speak, not with mouths. They didn't move like us, either. Long, angular limbs, faces that looked half-formed, like a sculpture someone abandoned halfway. Their leader, the one they called Sentrax, floated into our containment chamber like a wisp of smoke wearing bones. They told us he was a telepath, that he didn't need weapons to break us, that he could see through us, understand us, rip out every classified file, every launch code, every weakness, with a thought. The brass picked me. Not because I was the smartest, not because I had secrets. Hell, I wasn't even cleared for half the things in that room. But because I'd been different. Broken, if you asked the right people. Discharged dishonorably once, dragged back in when they started realizing normal wouldn't cut it anymore. I'd survived 4 wars. Lost a brother to friendly fire, left a daughter in a hospital bed too poor to pay for her treatment. I'd seen things, done things, that left scars deeper than skin, and I didn't give a damn anymore. So they locked me in a chair, surrounded me with electrodes, and told me, "Don't think of anything classified, just stay calm." Like I could do that with a 7-foot freak of nature walking through the wall like a ghost. It didn't speak, it didn't ask, it just reached in. It felt like someone cracked my skull open with silence. Not pain, not exactly, just a void. Like a vacuum-sucking memory after memory into its black hole. It moved fast, jumping through my past like chapters in a book it couldn't wait to finish. The day I held my brother's hand as he bled out. The morning I found out my girl died alone. The look in my mother's eyes when she realized I wasn't coming home the same. And then it stopped. The creature recoiled, physically jerked back like it had touched fire. It let out a sound, almost like a machine choking, and stumbled against the glass wall. Its limbs twisted, convulsing like a spider in death throes. Its black, lidless eyes locked with mine, and I saw something wild in them. Fear, not confusion, not pity. Pure, primal, soul-shaking terror. It collapsed to the floor, twitching, mouth open in a silent scream. The techs outside panicked. The alarms flared. I just sat there, cuffed, blinking slowly at the being they said had never known pain, never known trauma, never known humanity. They rushed in to recover it, but it was already too late. Its mind was gone, wiped clean. Brain activity off the charts 1 second, then dead silent, like it had been erased from the inside. The general came down an hour later. He didn't speak right away, just stared through the glass at the dead telepath. "You didn't do anything," he finally said, his voice low. "You didn't resist. You didn't even think of anything classified." I met his eyes. "Didn't have to." He nodded once, almost like respect, but it was tight, uneasy. Then he leaned in close. "What the hell did it see in there?" I looked at the body on the floor. Us. The body lay still for 2 days. They didn't move it at first. No one dared. It was like a cursed object, untouchable, radioactive. The alien's body started decaying faster than anything we'd ever seen. The skin, which had looked like polished onyx when it arrived, began to crack and curl, turning gray, brittle, flaking like old ashes. Even the air changed. The room grew colder, heavier. Like grief had settled into the walls, they called in every expert, Biologists, linguists, xenopsychologists, even a priest. None of them had answers. I watched them through the glass while I sat in the same damn chair, still cuffed, still treated like a bomb that hadn't gone off yet. Nobody wanted to be the first to say it, but they all felt it. That thing didn't die from exposure. It died from what it saw. The general came back on the third day. He wasn't alone this time. He brought someone colder, a man in a gray suit, thin as a scalpel, eyes like fogged glass. No badge, no name. The kind of man who made you want to forget you ever existed. He didn't waste time. "Name," he said, stepping into the room. "You already know it," I said. He didn't flinch. "We want to go deeper." I laughed once, dry. "Into what? There's nothing classified in my head. You boys already stripped me bare." He leaned forward, the light catching the sheen of sweat on his neck. "We don't want data. We want to know what made it scream. You were the variable." "Yeah?" I said, looking him dead in the eye. "Maybe the truth is uglier than you're ready for?" He stared at me, too long. Then he pulled a small tablet from his coat, tapped it once, and slid it onto the table. "Here's what we recovered from its neural residue. It was recording what it experienced in your mind. A backup system, fail-safe mechanism. Partial playback only, but enough." I didn't reach for it. I didn't need to. The image on the screen started playing on its own. At first, I didn't recognize what I was seeing. Just flashes. A kid screaming behind a shattered window, sandbags, smoke, blood in the air, thick like paint. Then it hit me. Fallujah. The alley where I found a boy strapped with explosives, no older than my daughter. He cried, asked for his mom. They told us never to hesitate. I didn't. Pulled the trigger before he could even blink. That was the first memory. There were more. My brother coughing blood into my lap. The look on his face, not pain, disappointment. He never forgave me for signing up. Thought I was running from something. Maybe I was. Another scene. A woman, my ex-wife, crying on the floor. I wasn't even yelling, just cold. Like ice had replaced my heart that year. I watched her break. I let her. I saw all of it through the alien's perspective. Not as a man, as a mind so foreign that emotion itself was like poison. That's what it couldn't handle. Not the blood, not the war, not even the guilt. It was the feeling. They were an old species, someone said, evolved past violence, past pain, past rage. They built a civilization on logic, on pure thought. They didn't know what it was to hurt and keep living anyway. Didn't understand shame, regret, loneliness. So when it touched a human mind and found a universe of wounds, the thing short-circuited. Because we're not rational creatures. We survive in spite of ourselves. The man in gray paused the video. "We need to know if this was unique to you, or if all humans carry this sickness." I raised an eyebrow. "Sickness?" He tilted his head. "We believe that what makes humans resilient is also what makes you dangerous. The ability to experience trauma without collapse, to commit acts of horror and keep going. Your mind contains centuries of inherited agony. Violence, betrayal, loss." He leaned forward again. "And you carry it with pride." I didn't answer. What was I supposed to say? "Sorry we're not dead inside like your people?" He stood up and walked to the door. "We're running simulations now, testing other subjects. We've invited them back, the aliens. They want a delegation to come aboard. They still want peace, but now they're afraid." He stopped at the door. Turned his head slightly. "They called you a mind weapon. They think we've engineered you." I couldn't help it. I laughed again. "You think I'm a weapon? I'm just a man." He smiled, the kind of smile that didn't touch his eyes. "Exactly." They took me out of the cell later that night. Said they needed my help. Said I'd be compensated. as if money fixed anything anymore. I didn't trust them. I knew they didn't trust me either. But they were scared now, not just of the aliens, of us, of what we might be capable of if the rest of the universe figured out what we really were. So they sent me up, into one of the ships. No armor, no guns, just a jumpsuit, a translator implant, and a dead stare. The ship didn't look like a ship on the inside. It felt like being inside a living organism. Walls pulsed gently. The air was warm, too warm, and the silence. It wasn't peaceful, it was hollow. The beings didn't look at me when I entered. They kept their distance, moved like monks, heads bowed, like they were in the presence of something unholy. The new telepath stepped forward, smaller than the last, slower, wiser, maybe. It didn't speak into my mind like the first one. Instead, it projected a question into the translator. Why do you not break? I stared at it for a long time. Then I answered. Because we're built on broken pieces. That's what you don't get. I took a step forward. You look at pain like it's a flaw, something to be fixed. We live with it. We use it. We become it. I leaned in closer. You tried to erase suffering from your species. We made it our fuel. The being's body stiffened. Then came another question. Is this why you survive? Why your kind thrives in war, in ruin? I nodded slowly. We suffer, and we remember. And when we remember, we build teeth. There was a long pause. Then the creature bowed, not out of respect, out of fear. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. They weren't preparing to conquer us anymore. They were preparing to contain us. When I came back to Earth, everything had changed. The UN was in panic mode. The US had gone dark. Military recruitment was skyrocketing. Not out of patriotism, out of fear. Because now they knew the aliens were scared of us. And nothing's more dangerous than being feared by something older, smarter, and better armed. Whispers started spreading. Humanity's mind is its greatest weapon. People started talking about weaponizing trauma, soldiers with PTSD being turned into psychic weapons, empathy as a form of warfare, memories turned into minds. They tried to keep it classified. It didn't work, because I wasn't the only one. They found others, survivors, broken men, women who'd lived through hell and come out breathing fire, refugees, convicts, former assassins, people who felt too much and didn't die from it. We weren't heroes. We were scars. And scars don't go away. It's been 6 months now since the first one died in my head. They've pulled me into rooms I can't talk about. Put me through tests that left me bleeding from the nose. Dreams are worse now, like someone left the door open and things are crawling in. But I've learned one thing. We were never meant to fit in with the galaxy. We were meant to change it. Because while the universe evolved to be clean, orderly, perfect, we survived by becoming monsters that cry. And there's nothing more dangerous than a monster that feels. 2 weeks after I stepped off that ship, the sky bled. It started over the Pacific, a light so bright it turned clouds into glass and oceans into mirrors. At first, people thought it was just another alien vessel arriving. We were used to that now. The ships came and went like diplomats, pretending they didn't flinch at the sight of us. But this one didn't hover. It burned. The heat wave hit Hawaii first, no warning, just a sudden shift. Birds falling mid-flight, fish boiling in the reefs, entire power grids frying like eggs on blacktop. Then came the tremor. A pulse in the sky, silent to the ears but felt in the bones. Seismologists couldn't explain it. Psychologists felt it before anyone else. It was grief. Weaponized grief. A message. The same alien race that had once approached us with curiosity was now afraid. But fear breeds preemption. So they used the only thing they had left. Emotional suppression technology. A psychic bomb. They tried to shut us down from the inside out. We called it the blank event. For 12 minutes, people across 3 continents collapsed. Not dead, just empty. Like someone had reached in and pulled the wires from their souls. No pain, no panic, just numbness. A slow, dripping kind of silence that hollowed out the air. I wasn't affected. Neither were the others like me. Men and women broken enough to be immune. They called us the fractured. The next day, I was dragged into a black site buried under the Appalachian Mountains, a facility that didn't exist on paper, surrounded by concrete, lead, and desperation. The man in the gray suit was there again. His name was still a mystery, but his voice carried weight now, heavier than a nuke. "This was a warning," he said, sliding a file toward me. "They think they can erase us before we figure out how to turn pain into power." I didn't open the file. I didn't need to. I could already hear the screaming in the halls. Not out loud, psychic echoes. Dozens, maybe hundreds of people being tested, pushed to their breaking points. "You want to fight emotion with emotion," I said flatly. He nodded. "You're not soldiers anymore. You're carriers." I raised an eyebrow. "Of what?" He smiled. "Contagious suffering. They built the program around us, people like me. Veterans with trauma layered like sediment, survivors of abuse, addicts clawing their way out of hell, convicts who'd lost everything but the urge to breathe. They called it Project Whale. At first, the tests were simple. Sit across from an alien empath and let it touch your memories. Measure the reaction. But over time, it escalated. They put us in simulation chambers, showed us our worst days, over and over again, until we could project the pain without saying a word. Some of us died. Some didn't wake up at all. But the ones who made it through? We learned how to bleed on command. We learned how to broadcast agony like a goddamn radio signal. I remember the first test outside the facility, a captured alien telepath, not from the same species as the one that died in my head. This one looked almost delicate. Porcelain skin, tall, frail limbs, no mouth, no ears, just a translucent crown pulsing with light. They sat it across from me, unchained, confident. Until I opened the box. Not a real box, a mental one, the compartment I'd learned to build around my worst memories. I'd stuffed it full over the years. The girl in the hospital bed, the look in my father's eyes after my arrest. The night I put a bullet through the head of a man I once called brother. I opened it, and I let it out. The telepath screamed. No sound, just lights flaring off its body like it was shattering from the inside. It collapsed into seizures. The medical team rushed in. It never woke up again. I sat there shaking, fists clenched, throat raw from nothing. Because it wasn't just pain I gave it. It was meaningful pain. Pain with teeth. Project Whale grew fast. The higher-ups stopped hiding us, started training us like elite units. Each of us was assigned a handler, someone immune or resistant to emotional feedback. They gave us code names, military-grade implants, injections to numb our physical nerves so we could focus all our energy inward. I didn't care what they called me. They just called me Chasm. Because I didn't carry pain like a wound anymore. I carried it like a damn trench, and I wasn't the worst one. There was a woman, Lena, codename Ashes, former firefighter, lost her entire team in a collapse. Husband never forgave her, drank himself to death. She could make an entire room go cold just by thinking about the scream she didn't hear in time. There was a man they called Howell, a prison survivor, spent 15 years inside for a murder he didn't commit. His rage wasn't loud. It was slow, drenched in helplessness. His aura made even humans vomit. We were weapons now, and someone had finally pulled the pin. The next time the aliens came back, it wasn't to negotiate. It was to finish the job. 12 ships again. Only these weren't silent watchers. They came armed, energy arrays glowing like suns, biomatter conversion weapons aimed directly at every major city. They gave us a message: surrender, or Earth becomes ash. The UN folded instantly, but the black sites didn't. They deployed us in threes. I went with Ashes and Howl. We were dropped into a shuttle so sleek it didn't even rumble on re-entry. No weapons. No defense systems. Just our minds and what we carried inside them. When we boarded the alien command vessel, they didn't even try to stop us, because they didn't understand how this worked. They thought warfare was still about technology. But we weren't here to fight. We were here to infect. Ashes walked first, every step trailing a memory of the fire she couldn't escape. Hallways grew dim behind her. The lights flickered. The air chilled. Howl followed, silent, hands in his pockets. The guards posted at the chamber doors began to shake. One dropped to his knees, coughing blood. And me? I walked into the central mind core and opened the damn vault. I let them see. I let them feel the day I watched my daughter die with tubes in her mouth and nothing left to sell to save her. I let them hear the final voicemail my brother left me just before he stepped into a firefight that wasn't his fight. I let them know what it meant to be human, to carry so much suffering and still have the audacity to breathe. The mind core ruptured. The ship didn't explode, it just stopped. Every light went out, every system died. We didn't have to fire a shot, because the one thing they never trained for was enduring sorrow. When we came back, we weren't heroes. We were problems. You see, once you teach a man to weaponize his grief, it's hard to tell him to stop using it. Governments tried to shut us down, buried the program, killed a few of us accidentally. But it was too late. Project Whale had leaked. And now, broken people everywhere were waking up to the truth. Pain isn't a weakness. It's ammunition. And the galaxy? The galaxy was about to learn just how armed humanity really was. There was no official declaration of war, no battle lines, no anthems, just silence. After we shut down the alien command ship, without a single bullet fired, the other 11 vessels vanished. Left Earth's orbit in less than 2 minutes, like scared dogs whipped for the first time. The world below celebrated. Fireworks lit up skies that just days earlier had trembled with extinction. But we weren't celebrating, because we knew the silence wasn't peace. It was calculation. The galaxy wasn't retreating. It was recalibrating, planning how to contain a species that turned trauma into a weapon. And we, the fractured, the ones who had walked through hell and come back broadcasting its screams, were now on every radar in the universe. They didn't see us as a fluke anymore. They saw us as a virus. The man in the gray suit was waiting when I got back. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't afraid either. He was something worse, resigned. "They've activated the barrier protocol," he said, walking beside me in the underground hangar. I lit a cigarette. "What the hell is that?" He handed me a file I didn't read. I never did. The only truth that mattered these days was written in scars, not paper. "A coalition of galactic species," he said, "formed after the collapse wars 3,000 cycles ago. If a civilization is deemed existentially unstable, they trigger the barrier, a kind of soft extermination." I exhaled slow. "Soft," he nodded. "They isolate the planet. Cut it off from trade, technology, and space-time navigation. Any ship trying to leave triggers a planetary destabilization field." "They lock the whole planet in a cage," I muttered. He nodded again. "And then they wait for it to eat itself." The first proof came 6 hours later. A cargo ship registered under a friendly alien merchant faction was scheduled to drop off atmospheric filters in Sao Paulo. It never made it. The last thing the orbital station picked up was a single pulse of energy and a black cloud where the ship had been. Then came the jamming. Satellites lost contact with colonies on Mars, Luna, and Europa. Every outbound signal was bounced back with one message burned into the code: biopsychic hazard, containment in progress. We weren't at war. We were under quarantine. Panic came in waves. First the governments, scrambling to explain why international funding was vanishing, why off-world assets were suddenly cut off. Then the corporations, ruthless in peace, hysterical in crisis. They collapsed like wet paper, dragging economies down with them. But the worst hit were the civilians. Because once people realized they were trapped on a planet that the rest of the galaxy had labeled too emotionally dangerous to exist, something snapped. Riots, looting, suicide rates spiking, and worse. Others started to imitate us. Broken people began to gather, not to fight, but to broadcast. They called themselves echo cells, rogue fractured, people who had either been part of Project Whale or mimicked its core technique. They weren't government-trained, but their pain was real, messier, unfocused, but just as dangerous. They hijacked signal towers and pumped raw grief into the skies like radiation. Some wrapped themselves in wires and screamed their childhood trauma into orbital antennas. Others turned memories into weapons that could fry the minds of anyone nearby, human or not. And the thing was, it worked. Aliens still monitoring us from deep orbit began to lose contact with their remote probes. Surveillance drones dropped from the skies with blackened cores, data corrupted. Pilots reported dreams they couldn't explain, memories that weren't theirs. We had crossed a threshold. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was infection. I was brought back in, by force this time. Gray suit, helicopters, needles in my veins to keep my brain from burning through the static. This wasn't supposed to spread, he told me. I laughed, harder than I should have. You pointed a gun at grief and acted surprised when it shot back. He didn't argue. That scared me more than yelling would have. There's a new player, he said. Not coalition, something worse. He tossed a photo on the table. It wasn't a photo. It was a transmission frame. A face, except it didn't have a mouth or nose, just rows and rows of eyes, some closed, some blinking, all watching. They call themselves the Silencers, he said. A cult species. Born in the remnants of civilizations destroyed by emotional war, they see what we're doing, and they don't want to quarantine us. I swallowed hard. They want to erase us. The Silencers didn't arrive in ships. They appeared in the minds of echo cells first. Visions, dreams, whispers in the static. Some claimed they were divine. Others said they were evolutionary janitors, sent to cleanse unstable species from the universal genome. Their method was simple. They didn't fight your pain. They consumed it. One echo cell in Cairo was found dead in a circle. 40 bodies, eyes burned out, brains liquefied. No signs of physical trauma. Just one message scrawled in blood. Your pain is a feast. We tried to track the visions, monitor psychic frequencies. It didn't help. Silencer influence wasn't linear. It didn't follow physics. It haunted. Pockets of cities started going dark. Not from blackouts, but from memory rot. Entire neighborhoods forgetting themselves. Names disappearing. Histories vanishing. The past eaten. And for the first time, Project Whale wasn't a weapon. It was a target. They came for me in the middle of the night. No sirens, no warnings. Just a cold draft in my bunker and a presence that shouldn't have fit in a room that small. It wasn't a body. It wasn't even a mind. It was a presence, a crushing pressure behind my eyes, like my grief had been turned inside out. I stumbled to the mirror. My reflection was smiling. I wasn't. Then I heard it, a voice that wasn't sound. You carry pain well, but it is wasted in your hands. I screamed, not because I was afraid, because I wasn't. And that was what scared me. They pulled me from the wreckage the next morning. My quarters were destroyed. No physical trace of an intruder. But the recordings? They showed me standing still for 7 hours, eyes open, unmoving, blood leaking from my nose, ears, and mouth. And I was smiling. The kind of smile a man wears when the last part of him just died. The gray suit didn't ask questions this time. He just handed me a pill. "Take this," he said. "It suppresses memory channeling. Cuts you off from your own past." I looked at it. Then I crushed it beneath my boot. "Pain's the only thing I've got left," I said. He didn't argue. 3 days later, I led a mission to intercept a silencer node manifesting in Siberia. Ashes was with me. Howell didn't make it. We found a village covered in snow and silence. No tracks, no bodies, just houses still warm, food still cooking, and nothing breathing. We found them underground. People. Stacked in rows, eyes open, memories missing. We tried to wake one. She just whispered, "I don't know who I am anymore." Ashes couldn't take it. She screamed, and the scream wasn't just sound. It was a memory of crawling through fire, of her husband's suicide, of the last voicemail he ever left, apologizing for not being strong enough. The scream rippled. And for a second, the air bent, the walls cracked, and the thing hiding behind the villagers, it flinched. The silencer wasn't immune. It could eat pain, but not pure, unfiltered, unresolved grief. Not grief that still bled. Ashes looked at me, and I nodded. We opened everything. Let it all out. The regret, the rage, the moments we wanted to die. We poured it into the cave like gasoline and lit it with memory. The silencer tore itself apart, trying to escape. It didn't make it. Back at the facility, the gray suit was pale. "You killed one." "No," I corrected. "We wounded one. That's worse." He didn't ask why, because he already knew. Wounded predators don't retreat. They come back angrier. And this time they'll bring the whole swarm. There are wars, you see, and then there are the ones you feel. We didn't hear the invasion start. There were no ships, no landing crafts, no orbital bombardment. Nothing broke through the atmosphere, no heat signatures, no alarms. But across the world, people began to lose their names. Not figuratively, literally. They forgot who they were. Hospitals overflowed. Not with wounds, but with emptiness. People sat in corners whispering nonsense, trying to recall the name of a child they once loved, the town they grew up in, the face of someone they buried years ago. It was the silencers. Not killing us, not yet, just disarming us. Because memory was our weapon, and they'd found a way to dull the blade. We called it the fading, and it spread fast. Unlike disease, it didn't move from body to body. It spread through shared trauma, emotional resonance. You could catch it by hearing someone describe a nightmare they never recovered from. The echo cells were hit first. Those who had built themselves around their pain started unraveling, their grief disconnected from its roots, rage without memory, sadness without meaning. The screams grew quieter. The psychic frequencies dropped. We were being erased from the inside out. They brought me in again. I wasn't surprised. I was the prototype, the proof of concept. The first to break an alien mind with nothing but memory. But now, I was also the last line of defense. Because even as others faded, I still remembered everything, every mistake, every scream, every face I let die, the pill they offered me once, the one that cut off pain. I'd refused it, over and over, not out of pride, not even rebellion, but because I knew if I lost my pain, I'd lose my edge. They didn't like it, but they needed me now. The man in the gray suit looked worse than I'd ever seen him, pale, thinner, his eyes bloodshot. Not from crying, he didn't seem like the type, but from sleeplessness. He tossed a file on the table. His hands shook. He never acknowledged it. "This is the last safe zone," he said. "Greenland, remote, cold. Low population. They haven't reached it yet." I opened the file. Satellite imagery. A fortress, not military, experimental. "They built a mirror there," he said. "A psychic amplifier. Uses quantum entanglement to turn a single person's memory into a frequency that can echo across the planet." I looked at him. "You want to make me a lighthouse?" He shook his head. "We want to make you a bomb." The idea was simple in theory. Link me to the mirror. Channel every fragment of my pain into the core. Broadcast it through every layer of the atmosphere. Burn it into the psychic resonance of the planet. Make it impossible for the silencers to feed without choking on the raw, unresolved grief of one broken man. It wouldn't kill them, but it would force them to leave. And if it didn't, then it would be my last scream before they buried us all. We flew to Greenland in silence. I wasn't alone. Ashes was there. Howell's chair sat empty. Others joined us. Survivors, ghosts, people whose minds were still intact, not because they were strong, but because their pain was too loud to fade. A boy from Syria who lost his family in a drone strike. A mother from Detroit who'd buried all 3 of her kids in different years. A soldier from somewhere in Africa. He didn't talk much, but he bled guilt like it was oxygen. We were the last choir, and we were about to sing a song so deep the universe would flinch. The mirror wasn't what I expected. Not a glass panel, not even a machine. It was a sphere, 12 feet high, floating above a basin of liquid light, made from alien tech. Reverse engineered during the early contact years, when cooperation was still a word that meant something. It hummed when I entered the room, recognized me, welcomed me. The lead technician briefed me like a man reading from a page he didn't believe. "You'll be connected via neural interface. Every memory you allow in will be magnified, echoed, broadcasted through every psychic channel around the planet." "And if I go too deep?" I asked. He hesitated. "We don't know what that looks like," I smirked. "I do." They strapped me in. No wires, just a halo of sensors above my skull and a needle buried in the back of my neck. They called it the thread. It wasn't just connecting me to the mirror. It was weaving me into it, merging me with the machine, turning me from a man into a signal. I gave them a nod. The room dimmed, and then I opened the door. First came my daughter, laying there, wires in her nose, hands pale, the machines beeping slower and slower until I knew they were just pretending she had a chance. I called her name, and the mirror shook. Then came the war. The alley where I shot a child before his vest could explode, the way his eyes rolled back, the smell of burnt hair, the silence afterward, not peace, but the kind that makes you wonder if you're still alive. The sphere glowed brighter. Then the betrayal. My brother's face, when I told him I enlisted again, after he begged me not to, his hand slapping mine away. One last time before the call that said he was gone. The thread burned behind my eyes. I pushed deeper. The fights with my wife, the bottle in my hand, her tears. The moment I realized I didn't love myself enough to love her back. My failure, my cowardice, my regret. I felt it hit. Not just the room, not just the building, the planet. The ground shifted beneath Greenland's ice. Birds fell from the sky. Tectonic sensors across continents buzzed. The mirror wasn't just broadcasting pain. It was etching it into the earth, a warning, a shield, a curse. Then I felt them, the silencers, thousands of them, trying to push through, trying to feed. And finding that every bite was full of glass. They shrieked in frequencies that cracked clouds. But they couldn't breach it. Not now. because I wasn't alone anymore. Every memory I shared triggered another. And another. The boy from Syria stepped forward, his eyes blank but glowing. The mother from Detroit screamed, and her scream echoed into the thread. Ashes whispered her husband's name. The soldier dropped to his knees and began to weep. And together, we sang. Across the world, the fading stopped. Memories returned. People gasped as their names came back. Their grief lit up inside them like embers catching fire. The pain didn't kill them. It reminded them they were still human. The silencers began to break. Not die, but crack, fragment. The cities they infected lost their grip. Memory storms erupted. Raw, chaotic emotions turned into wildfire. But this time it was ours. Not alien, not artificial. Ours. They left Earth 2 days later. No message, no parting words, just gone. Like they'd bitten into something rotten and realized it would never stop tasting like blood. I woke up in a bed, my body weak, hair gone, eyes still weeping blood. The mirror was dark now, offline, but the world outside was breathing, still broken, still bruised, but awake. The man in the gray suit visited me one last time. His voice was quiet. I asked them if we should destroy the mirror. I looked at him, and he shrugged. They said it might be the only reason we're still alive. I smirked. Then let it sit. Let them see it every time they look our way. He turned to go, but paused at the door. What should we call it? He asked. I stared at the ceiling, the thread still humming faintly behind my eyes. Then I whispered, Gravestone. Because that's what Earth had become. Not a battlefield, not a prison, not even a home, but a grave marker. For those who tried to erase what they didn't understand. For those who thought pain was a weakness. For those who looked into the soul of a human being and forgot to close their eyes. Peace didn't feel like peace. Not when you knew it wouldn't last. 2 months after the broadcast that pushed the silencers away, the world was quiet. Too quiet. No riots, no screams, no psychic disturbances, just a slow, unnatural calm. Like the air itself was holding its breath. The world governments called it a miracle. News networks ran stories with banners like Humanity's Triumph and Earth Ascends. But the people who built the gravestone, the people like me, knew better. We didn't win a war. We just survived a message. And the message wasn't just sent to the silencers. It was sent to everyone. The first contact came 61 days after the mirror event. A ship. Old design. Not coalition. Not friendly. It didn't decloak. It didn't ask for permission. It dropped into Earth's orbit like a hammer and broadcasted one word across every global frequency. Surrender. At first, they thought it was a bluff. We had defensive satellites, space forces, anti-orbital lasers. The new Terran defense net had been hardened after the barrier protocol. But none of that mattered, because they weren't threatening our cities. They were threatening the mirror. They called themselves the Nhalari, a species from the edge of the Orion Drift. Their emissary stood 10 feet tall, wrapped in translucent armor that moved like smoke. No face, just a shifting plate of symbols that changed with every word. We do not fear you, it said. We envy you. That caught everyone off guard. The UN translator glitched mid-sentence, trying to process the nuance. But I understood it the second I saw the Nhalari stare at the mirror core through the observation glass. They weren't here to destroy the gravestone. They were here to steal it. Their story was simple. Their people had lost something thousands of years ago, emotional continuity, a spiritual extinction. They evolved past grief, past love, past hatred. Their memories remained, but their ability to feel them had eroded. And when they witnessed the gravestone's signal, it triggered something ancient in them, a hunger. Because our grief, the rawness of it, the wild, imperfect humanity of it, was something they couldn't replicate. They didn't want the weapon, they wanted the pain. Negotiations didn't last long. When Earth said no, the Nalari showed us what they'd already done to another world, a planet called Trevelux, once inhabited by over 1 billion sentients, reduced to ash, not with bombs, not with gas, but with empathy inversion, a psychic flood of counterfeit emotion, a virus of false grief. They drowned the population in manufactured sorrow so thick they forgot how to feel anything real. And then they harvested what was left. The footage played on loop in our war room, and I knew deep in my gut we weren't negotiating anymore. The man in the gray suit found me the next morning. Same quiet eyes, same dead tone. But there was something new behind it now. Fear. "They want you," he said. I lit a cigarette. "Of course they do. They believe you're the source." I smirked. "I'm just the carrier." He leaned in. "You're the last one connected to the mirror, fully. Every other fractured who tried, they burned out. You're still linked." That part was true. The thread was still alive inside me, a whisper behind my thoughts, a heartbeat that didn't match my own. I had become the gravestone's shadow, and now the galaxy wanted to either wear me or bury me. We didn't have time to build a defense. The Nalari launched a full incursion, no planetfall, no traditional war. They sent harvest engines, massive constructs 3 miles wide, designed to siphon psychic energy across planetary scales. They landed near the Pacific Rim, just floated, didn't fire, didn't move, just began to listen. And that was worse than any attack, because every second they listened, they drained us. Hospitals flooded again. Old pain returned. People who had healed found themselves relapsing, sobbing, breaking. The air grew heavier. Memories lost their warmth. Songs sounded flatter. Hugs felt hollow. They weren't just stealing emotion. They were replacing it. I was given a choice. Run. Or broadcast again. This time, not as a shield, but as a spear. I went back to Greenland. The gravestone had changed. Its surface, once smooth, now rippled like skin. It responded to me before I even stepped inside, recognized me like an old scar recognizing the blade that made it. The technicians were gone. No teams, no handlers, just one room, one chair. They called it the last broadcast, because if this didn't work, if the gravestone couldn't stop them, we had no more cards to play. They linked me back in. The thread slipped into the base of my skull like it had been waiting, and I fell inward. The mirror didn't ask this time. It took. It dove into me, pulled every raw edge, every wound, every ounce of unfinished mourning and sharpened it. It showed me my daughter again. But this time, not the moment of her death. It showed me the moment I gave up trying to save her. It showed me my brother's funeral, but not the coffin. It showed me the look on my mother's face when I told her I was going back to war. And then, it showed me myself. Not the soldier, not the survivor, just the failure. And then it asked one question, not in words, but in feeling. "Do you want to hurt them?" And I answered, "Yes." The gravestone didn't broadcast pain this time. It broadcasted truth, the pure, unfiltered human experience. The moments we hate ourselves, the guilt we carry for surviving, the things we don't say at funerals, the way we fake smiles while dying inside. It sent all of it, not just grief, but the awareness of it, the burden of being human. And it hit the Nalari like fire in an oxygen tank. Their engines cracked, their armor melted from the inside out. Because they didn't just want our pain, they wanted it without earning it. But the gravestone wouldn't allow that. It made them live it. The sky glowed for 3 hours. Then silence. Total. Not like before, not hollow, restful. The Nalari were gone. No ships, no message, no aftermath. They didn't retreat. They just stopped being. When I woke up, the thread was dead. Burned out, like a match that had done its job. The gravestone was cracked down the middle, still humming but softly, like a tired beast gone to sleep. They tried to ask me what I saw, what I felt, what I did. But the truth is, I couldn't explain it. Because the last thing I saw in the mirror was my daughter smiling. And I knew, maybe for the first time, that pain doesn't have to destroy. It can be the last thing that saves you. It wasn't the silence that worried me. It was the attention. For the first time in our planet's short, violent history, the galaxy wasn't laughing at us. They weren't ignoring us. They weren't even planning our quiet erasure anymore. They were watching. Billions of eyes, sensors, consciousnesses, all aimed at the small blue world with the cracked psychic weapon and a species that refused to stay in its place. The silence after the Nalari disappeared didn't feel like peace. It felt like the moment after a bar fight where the toughest guy just got knocked out and everyone else is wondering if they're next. They called it the human question. No joke. That was the official term. Whispers passed through coalition networks. Council members from 100 different species gathered in secret chambers on moons and citadels and floating palaces to debate whether Earth should be 1. Contained, 2. Protected, 3. Or invited. In the first group argued we were a virus, barely stable, emotionally toxic, and mentally infectious. The second group said we were necessary now, proof that pain could be weaponized against existential threats like the silencers. And the third, they wanted to use us. I was sitting in a hospital room the first time someone from that third group made contact. Ashes was in a coma, hadn't woken up since the final broadcast. Doctors said her brain was intact, but her psychic channel was overloaded, like she'd stared at the sun and forgot to blink. I visited her every day. Not because I thought she'd wake up, but because I owed her that much. She screamed when I couldn't. She burned when I froze. Some of us didn't survive the gravestone. Some of us became it. The man who visited me wasn't human. He wore a human body, skin, teeth, hair, but it was all borrowed, like clothes that didn't quite fit. He sat beside me like a tourist in a church he didn't believe in. "You are afraid," he said, in a voice too clean. "Not of you," I replied. He smiled. "You should be." I didn't bother asking who he worked for. He wasn't Nhalari, not Silencer. Something older, something that didn't speak in terms of planets but eras. "You broadcast your pain," he said, "but that was only the beginning." He leaned forward. "There are others." That was the first time I heard about the Ash Choir, a loose, unaffiliated group of species, exiled, extinct on paper, hiding in the ruins of fallen civilizations. They weren't political. They weren't religious. They were emotional purists. They believed that evolution wasn't physical. It was psychic. And that the next phase of intelligent life wouldn't be determined by intelligence, but by the ability to endure meaning, not process information, but carry its weight. And they saw Earth not as a threat, but as the first spark of something new. They wanted the gravestone, not to destroy it, not to use it. They wanted to replicate it. The gray suit wasn't thrilled. "You can't just export trauma like it's software," he said. I stood across from him in the bunker's old war room. Dust on the screens, coffee rings on the table, a graveyard of plans that never worked. "But we already did," I said. "The silencers. The Nhalari. They didn't come for our ships. They came because we sent feeling across the stars." He stared at me like a man trying to stop a dam with his hands. You think this ends with one signal? You think the rest of the galaxy's just going to let us be now? I shook my head. No. I think they're going to come asking for our help. And they did. Not all at once, but in pieces. The first to arrive was a scout species called the Yeneri. Amphibious, slow-moving, low intelligence by galactic standards, but ancient memory depth. Their people had forgotten how to express sorrow generations ago. They brought one of their own. A child. Lost its mother in a tidal collapse. The memory was buried under chemical suppressants. They asked us to help him remember how to cry. We did. It took 2 days. He collapsed into my arms, sobbing like a broken faucet, trembling in waves. When it was over, he looked up at me with swollen eyes and whispered something I never forgot. Now I can dream again. More came. A delegation from a nomadic AI culture. They'd erased their origin world centuries ago, thought they had purged emotion from their code. But after hearing the broadcast, something woke up. They asked to feel loss, so we gave them our dead. Let them sift through memories of funerals, eulogies, roadside crosses, names carved into stone, empty hospital beds, voicemail boxes filled with last goodbyes. They processed it, and for the first time in their existence, they wept. But not everyone saw this as progress. Back on Earth, resistance grew, not from governments, but from humans. There were those who believed we were being used, that we were turning pain into a currency, and the galaxy into addicts. They called us the Weepers, mocked us, called gravestone a cult, said we were glorifying suffering. That we were rewriting humanity's story into a sob opera the rest of the universe could watch and feed off. They weren't entirely wrong. Because the truth? Pain was power now, and some of us were getting very good at using it. I started hearing new names: Furies, Howlers, Vessels, humans who had learned how to broadcast without the mirror. Mobile trauma weapons, walking storms of unresolved grief. Some worked for Earth, some didn't. One Fury took out a rebel fleet over Titan just by screaming his father's dying breath through a hijacked signal array. Another shut down a trading station with nothing but the psychic echo of her child's laughter, and the fact that it no longer existed. The gravestone had started as a warning. Now it was a standard, a blueprint, a doomsday gospel. And I had become its unwilling prophet. Ashes woke up. I don't know how. Maybe she heard us. Maybe she followed the pain home. She opened her eyes in a cold, white room and whispered, "Is it over?" I held her hand and said, "No, it's just starting." She didn't cry, didn't need to. We'd cried enough for the whole damn galaxy. There was one final message that arrived weeks later. Not a ship, not a voice. Just a signal. Text. Burned into the atmosphere by particles too small for our sensors to track. It said, "We hear you, we fear you, we welcome you." 3 factions, 3 choices. And Earth? Earth had to decide what it wanted to be. A sanctuary, a weapon, or a goddamn warning label. The gravestone cracked again last night, not from pressure, not from use, but from waiting. Its surface now looked like dried blood, dark and jagged. The core pulsed slower than before, a heartbeat waiting for something it didn't understand. It had grown quiet. Not dead, but tired. I knew the feeling. The new council came down from orbit in a carrier shaped like a teardrop. No guards, no weapons, just 10 delegates from every corner of the known galaxy. They called it the Convocation of Wounds. I hated the name. Sounded poetic, pretty, and nothing about what we'd lived through was pretty. They wanted to speak to the Prophet. That's what they called me now. Not soldier, not operator, not even survivor. Just a man whose pain once screamed loud enough to make monsters turn away. They took me to Reykjavik, the only capital left standing without a single riot or attack since the first broadcast. The city had become the unofficial spiritual capital of Earth, a place where no one smiled too wide, where silence was respected like church air, and where every building had a wall dedicated to names. Just names. Thousands of them, all carved by hand, people we lost, people who never had graves, people who remembered too much. The council met in what used to be a cathedral. The stained glass still held the light like it wanted to believe in something. I stood across from them. No speech, no translator, just my face and the weariness behind it. The first speaker was a being made of crystal tendrils and floating ash. It hummed when it spoke. "You have changed the structure of pain," it said. "You have made it communicable, weaponizable, teachable." I said nothing. Another delegate, this one humanoid but faceless, stepped forward. "We have come to ask what your species intends to do with this power." I blinked. "That's not my decision." The crystal creature hummed again. "It must be. You were the first. The gravestone only answered you." I shook my head slowly. "No, I was just the one who screamed loud enough to get noticed. That doesn't make me a leader. That makes me a warning." They offered us 3 paths. Path 1. Containment. Seal Earth off again. Lock down the gravestone. Prevent anyone from learning or replicating its emotional frequency. Let the galaxy recover. Path 2. Dissemination. Share the gravestone technology. Train other species in psychic resonance. Spread the gift and the burden of emotion-based memory transmission. Path 3. Ascension. Convert Earth into a planetary beacon. Let the gravestone broadcast across star systems permanently. Let every species hear the raw echo of humanity's pain and be changed by it. I asked if that last one was a threat or a gift. They didn't answer, because it could be either. The human governments panicked, not because they didn't understand, but because, for once, they did. Each option meant giving up control. Option 1 was cowardice, hiding again, hoping the next threat ignored us. Option 2 was risk, sharing a weapon too few understood. Option 3 was madness, making ourselves a psychic lighthouse in the middle of a universe filled with shadows. So they turned to me. To decide. Not because I was the most qualified, but because they couldn't agree on anything else, and maybe because they wanted someone to blame when it all went wrong. Ashes walked again. Slowly, unsteady, but her eyes were awake. She found me the night before the decision was to be announced. We sat on the edge of the old Reykjavik harbor, where rusted boats floated in dark water and gulls screamed like something ancient and broken. "You're going to say no," she said. I didn't answer. "You want to lock it down," she said again. "Shut it off. Seal the gravestone." I turned toward her and saw it, not judgment, but disappointment. She wasn't wrong. I was afraid, not of the power, but of what we'd already become. "I don't want us to be gods," I said, "or martyrs, or cosmic therapists." Ashes looked out at the sea. Her voice was soft, but sharp. "You don't get to choose what we are anymore. That choice was made the day you screamed." She turned to me. "That's the curse of being first. You don't get the peace. You just get the fire." That night, I went to the gravestone. Alone. No technicians, no security, no fanfare. I placed my hand on its cracked surface. It was cold. And then it spoke. Not in words, in feeling. It showed me everything again. The child I shot, the brother I failed, the daughter I couldn't save, the screams I buried, the lives we lost. And then it showed me something new. Not memory, but possibility. A room, a small one. A child from another world, sitting with a human echo, telling a story about loss. And not crying, just understanding. Another vision. An AI monk, metal fingers pressed to a memory stone, playing back the sound of a human lullaby. Another, an Alori survivor rebuilding a temple, this time with a grief chamber, a place to feel. And another, Earth, not burning, not armed, but open, quiet, grim, but alive. I stepped back, felt my pulse slow, and finally understood. We weren't meant to control pain. We were meant to carry it, not alone, but first. The next day, I spoke before the galaxy. No robe, no crown, just a voice. And I gave them the answer. We will share it, all of it. Not because we want power. Not because we want pity, but because this weight, this wound, this unbearable hum in the back of the mind. It's what makes us real. The gravestone didn't become a weapon. It became a school, the first of its kind, a sanctuary for the emotionally wounded, for the broken, for the ones too afraid to remember. Species sent their forgotten. They're numb. They're hopeless. And we gave them what we had. Not salvation, not wisdom, just grief. Human, raw, messy, real. And for many it was enough. Years passed. I grew old. My name faded. The galaxy moved on. But the gravestone? It remained. Not untouched, but unforgotten. And when I died, they didn't build me a statue. They carved my name on the last panel of the Reykjavik wall. Just one more name. Among thousands, not special, not praised, just remembered. Like all the others.